Hi, have you ever got lost underwater, or have you been taught how to use a compass and it's been a while and you're not really sure? Well, watch this video and I'll give you a quick introduction, a brief beginner's guide on how to use a compass. Hi, I'm Andy the Northern Diver and welcome to another episode in this series of scuba diving tutorials where I'll be giving you a Billy basic guide on the underwater diving compass. And if this is your first time here, please consider hitting the subscribe button below. That way you can see all the other content we've produced. At the side of that, you'll see there's a little bell icon. Clicking that will give you a notification every time we post a new video. But if you don't have a YouTube account, you won't be able to do this. So I've posted a little link just up here to a quick 2-minute video that'll teach you how you go about the process of setting one up. And that way you can like, comment and subscribe to any video or channel that you like on YouTube. The underwater compass, most of us have been taught this from the first time we started diving, and many of us, I would suggest, have forgotten because they just haven't used it since. So if you've never been taught this, it's more of an interest lesson to you, and it'll sort of help you when you go to have your lessons understand the theory a little bit easier. And if you've been taught it before, obviously this is just a little refresher, but it's not an all-inclusive guide. It's just a sort of beginner's introduction to label the working parts and a Billy basic use of that compass. Right then, so most dive compasses are the same, whether they be attached to your wrist via a bungee, a watch strap, or you've got a retractable cable, or they're on your console. They've all got the same sort of working parts. So we start off, we've got a bezel that turns around, and on that we've got all the degrees numbered on. On the bezel you've also got the index markers. So the two you want to, or the bit you always want to make a note of is the two index markers together. Across the screen we've got the lubber line. Inside you can see the compass, and then on one side, which is always facing you, is the aperture or window. So if you put your torch or a bit of bright light onto the compass, it'll glow up green. Hopefully that shows up on the camera there. Not sure if it will, but I've just shoved it in front of my light. I'll do it again now and see if that helps. So you should see it's sort of luminescent a little bit and it'll glow up. So what I'll do is I'll mount it to start with. I'm going to wear it in the water. So I'll wear it on my wrist like that. And I'll point this in the direction that I want to go in. I'm reading off the aperture. I'm going to look through that and sort of glance over the top in the right direction. And that's giving me 240 degrees. So what I need to do then is move the bezel. So 240 degrees is at the 12 o'clock point, or where the top of the lubber line is. So the furthest point away from me is 240. Then what I need to do is orientate myself to the ground, so the north point of the compass is pointing between the two lubber lines. That's quite hard to do that because it needs to be, for camera, because it needs to be kept level, or it goes into what's known as gimbal lock. So keeping it level, north to that direction, so I need to move around slightly. Move around, so keeping that level. The lubber line is pointing that direction, which is what we already know. So now I'm going to get into the water, keeping that in the right direction, making sure north is between the two index markers, and that's the direction I'm going to swim on. One problem you might encounter is that the visibility isn't far enough for you to see where you're going to go to do this underwater, but you might already have like a map and it'll give you that bearing. So you can set the bearing up, so it might be 300 degrees. So I'll turn the bezel around, so 300 is at the 12 o'clock point of where the lubber line is, so furthest away from me. I'll orientate myself a little bit, so the north arrow is between the two index markers, north being that way. So I need to swim in that direction. But to make my life easy, so I don't have to swim like that or anything like this, right? I can point that in the direction and look as far as I can see, and if there's anything in between, or pick a point on the seabed, put the compass away and swim to the point that I've noticed is in line with me and the bearing I want to travel on. When I get to that point, take another bearing and swim again. And if I keep sort of leapfrogging or doing these little baby steps, eventually I should hit the point that I wanted to get to, my target. So next of all, we want to do a reciprocal bearing. So you've now got to your target and you want to turn around and come back to your start point. And that might be because you're on a beach, or because you've got to get to a shot line, or because in a quarry it's cliffs all the way around and you've only got one point of entrance and exit. So it's fair to say if you swam on a bearing of 300 degrees, that you're going to have to come back 120 in reverse. So rather than turning the bezel, all you need to do is turn yourself. So the north point on the compass needs to point at the single index marker at that point. So as you're swimming back, it should be quite easy and familiar, and it's known as pilotage, to pick those points up along the way back, so you'll be quite familiar with them and comfortable that you're in the right direction. A couple of things to note with your compass: if it isn't level, it will go into gimbal lock. Bear in mind it's just a disc that's on a point, so if that point's no longer central, it's just going to lock out. It will glow in the dark, so remember, put your torch on that if you're struggling to read it, and it'll help you see it. But it is affected by any large metallic objects. Now, you've got a tank on your back or maybe on your sides, and if it's steel, it's clearly going to sort of drag that out. So keeping it way out, keeping it level. Some people put their arm out and the other one across them so they can keep that straight. It's certainly easier with a watch rather than the one that's on top of your wrist. I like this one better, but each to their own. So if you're in a dive team of 3, it should be just a dive leader that's taking the bearing and swimming on that, whilst the other 2 stay with him and maintain situational and diver awareness throughout that portion of that leg of the dive. That way everybody stays safe. One person can concentrate onto the task of getting from A to B, and the other 2 divers in the team can concentrate on the safety aspects of it, making sure there's no descent or ascent too quickly, and that there's no sort of contributing factors that are going to make that dive unsafe. So it's really important you work as a team. My top tip for this then, what I'd make sure is that you know which direction generally is the homeward bank. That way, if you only have one point that you can get out of the water, whether it be a set of steps or a beach entry or something like that, make sure you generally know what direction it is. So let's say it's west, which is 270 degrees. If you orientate your bezel to say 270, and you're kind of geographically embarrassed, you're lost underwater, all you need to do is turn your compass round, swim in a westerly direction, and one of 2 things will happen. Either you'll hit the side before you know it, or you'll find a point underwater that you recognise, and you can reorientate yourself to the underwater situation and get yourself back safely. So I hope this has been of some use to you. If it has, please give us a thumbs up, and if there's any comments, questions or queries, put them in the sort of comments box below, and I'll be sure to get back to you as fast as I can. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.
See you on Insta.